Burundian police launch a crackdown as violence escalates in the nation's capital. As Pope Francis prepares for his first visit to the continent, a closer look at the potential impact of the pontiff's trip. And a festive export from Argentina that has the Catholic Church worried. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. The Burundian government is making a major push to curb the nation's growing violence. Officials say its door-to-door effort to collect illegal arms is proceeding peacefully. President Pierre Nkurunziza had set a November 7th deadline for people to surrender any illegal arms. The president says those who do not hand over arms will be treated as criminals. Critics such as the United States warned the move may incite more violence if security forces start searching homes for weapons. Opposition members say they worry the security forces will plant weapons to target opponents. At least 200 people have been killed during months of violence that began when President Nkurunziza decided in April to run for a third term. The latest violence came in an attack on Bujumbura Bar Saturday that witnesses say killed 9 people. Now for the latest, Apollinaire Niyirora, a Burundian journalist, joins us by phone from Bujumbura. Apollinaire, how are citizens reacting to the crackdown against illegal arms?
Yes, citizens are scared and others are angry at the same time. For instance, on the second day of the forced disarmament that took place, I give an example at Mutakura and Cibitoke today. People were angry. Some people who had succeeded to go out to look for food, to buy food in the market, because inside the neighborhood, there is no market still operating because most people have fled their houses. So when they came back to their households to cook the food, they were blocked. So it was impossible for them to enter. Another group of people are those who were called to come back, to return home from houses where they had sought refuge. Even those people were also blocked. So the situation remains still uncertain. Some people are angry, others are scared of the forced disarmament.
The question is, one would have thought that a peaceful handing over of those arms would solve the problem. Why are people scared? Why are people running away?
People are running away due to the words that were used before when the president issued the ultimatum. So people ran away, they fled their houses, they went to safer neighborhoods just to seek asylum. So they are still afraid. And today at the Musaga, that is in the southern suburb of the capital, 3 people were killed. Three people were killed during that forced disarmament. So people remain scared until today, even though there is assurance that there will be a peaceful disarmament.
Yes, and now, generally, how is the feeling like? Do people fear that there could be an escalation in violence in the coming days?
Yeah, people are still scared. They are still scared, even though there was an appeal to the population to return to their houses. People are still scared. They don't know whether there will be really a peaceful forced disarmament. They are not sure whether it's true that the disarmament will be made peacefully.
Well, Apollinaire, thank you very much. Apollinaire Niyirora, he's a Burundian-based journalist reporting from Bujumbura. Now to the Middle East, a Jordanian police officer gunned down a South African and 2 Americans before local forces shot him down at a training center outside of Amman. Security sources say the assailant wounded 2 American trainers and 4 Jordanians at the Jordan International Police Training Center. A government spokesman says an investigation is underway to determine the motives behind the crime. The U.S. and Jordanian government signed an agreement in 2003 establishing the facility to train tens of thousands of police officers from neighboring Iraq. Well, at this hour, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is meeting with U.S. President Barack Obama at the White House. The two leaders are slated to discuss bilateral and regional issues, as well as U.S. military aid to its key Middle East ally. Mr. Netanyahu is expected to ask for $50 billion in aid for the decade starting in 2017 to help maintain a military advantage over its neighbors. VOA's Latza Hoke tells us more.
Hours before his trip to Washington, the Israeli Prime Minister told his cabinet the conversation with President Obama will center on the Middle East, including Syria and the growing tensions between Israelis and Palestinians. But the focus of his visit is a request for increased military aid for Israel.
And of course, strengthening the security of the State of Israel, something that the United States is always committed to, with the State of Israel's qualitative edge being preserved in the face of a changing Middle East and a changing balance of forces.
Under a current agreement, Israel received more than $3 billion a year and is now asking for $5 billion, according to a Reuters report quoting U.S. congressional sources. Some analysts describe the request as an appeasement for the Iran nuclear deal, which the United States and 5 other powers reached with Tehran earlier this year. Netanyahu angered Obama by coming to Washington in March without his invitation or approval in an attempt to get the U.S. Congress to reject the deal. The Obama administration has made no secret of its frustration about Israel's stalling on the two-state solution.
The main thing the president would want to hear from Prime Minister Netanyahu is that without peace talks, how does he want to move forward to prevent a one-state solution, stabilize the situation on the ground, and to signal that he is committed to the two-state solution?
While in Washington, Netanyahu also may have to justify his Wednesday appointment of Ran Baratz as the head of Israel's National Public Diplomacy Directorate. Baratz, who has yet to be confirmed, has used Facebook to describe President Obama as a modern anti-Semite and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry as having the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. Zlarica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, the World Health Organization declared Sierra Leone Ebola-free over the weekend. The West African nation has gone for more than 42 days without any new infections. Speaking to VOA's Africa 54 Paul Ndiho, Andrew Cayley, one of Sierra Leone's opposition leaders and a presidential candidate, says the news from WHO is a great relief.
Caught us snapping, frankly speaking, and it really exposed the fragility of our health system. And initially it was very scary. A lot of our health workers died. Lots of specialists, lots of medical workers died. And it affected all parts of the country. It started in the east and it grew up and it went right around the country. So it was scary. But quite apart from that, we had a lot of help from externally. We also organized ourselves internally. There was a lot of help from paramount chiefs, other people that organized themselves. And I'm pleased to report that by Saturday, God willing, I think we'll see the end of it. We'll have gone 42 days without any incident.
Sierra Leone was one of those countries that were devastated by the Ebola epidemic. What has the country done so far, and how is the recovery process?
It's going to be a long process. As you realize, the mines shut down, most of the major mines shut down. Most of the tourist industry was in the doldrums. Most of the areas which bolstered our economy were down. And it also affected people. If you couldn't go to work or you were scared of going to certain places, you couldn't travel, it affected you. Even in the rural areas, it affected business, it affected farming, it affected everything. So every fabric of the Sierra Leonean society was affected. To rebound from this and gain that confidence, we can do it, but it's going to be slow. There is an Ebola recovery program, and it's over a couple of years, about 2 years. But I think that with the right resolve, we should be able to sort this out. But we just have certain caveats that we have to take care of. I will try to empower Sierra Leoneans so that we take hold of our own destiny. There are lots of things that could be done, but we have not capacitated. And this is what I'll concentrate on. Capacitating the human resources and then being able to manage our natural resources very well so that we can forge ahead.
Well, in East Africa, candidates in Uganda's February presidential election officially began their campaigning Monday. Human Rights Watch has called for the government to ensure a level playing field for everyone. 8 candidates are running, including President Yoweri Museveni's bid for a 5th term and opposition leader Kizza Besigye's 4th attempt to defeat the president. Human Rights Watch says police brutality, obstruction of media and a lack of accountability for past elections abuses have undermined the process of free and fair elections in Uganda. The group says the campaign period is a critical opportunity to avoid the repression of past campaigns. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Or find me on Twitter at Vincent Makori. Coming up, Malawi's school feeding program is threatened by a food crisis. Stay with us.
This is BizBeat.
Nigeria has Africa's largest economy, but it's not much of a coffee-drinking country. But the co-founder of Cafe Neo smells a coffee consumer market. But there are hurdles to face. Ngozi Dozie says his company gets more of its coffee beans from other African countries than it does from Nigeria.
It's more expensive because the logistics in bringing it here are actually more expensive than getting it from Rwanda. And this is another challenge that we face.
The Nigerian middle class is on the rise, and that means more disposable income. Ben Aorta is a digital marketing consultant who says a coffee house in Lagos is an idea that he thinks will do well.
I think it's different. I think it's one of the things that is needed, especially in Lagos.
Cafe Neo has 3 locations, but plans to expand to 30 more coffee houses in the next 5 years for what they hope will be a growing coffee culture in Nigeria. For VOA's BizBeat, I'm Philip Alexio.
Welcome back. Thousands of environmentalists and religious groups marched from Rome's Colosseum to St. Peter's Square in the Vatican City on Sunday. The march, held by Earth Day Network, was organized to highlight the upcoming COP21 climate conference in Paris. Some of those taking part wore costumes representing the Earth, the Sun and the Moon as they walked to the Vatican to attend Pope Francis Angela's prayer. The COP21 conference starts in Paris on 30th of November. Well, in Washington, D.C., the Ignatian Solidarity Network hosted a rally early Monday at the U.S. Capitol calling for social justice. To tell us more about it, I'm joined by Christopher Kerr, Executive Director, Ignatian Solidarity Network. Mr. Kerr, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much, Vincent.
Yeah, so first share with us a bit about your rally today, the Capitol.
We had over 1,200 folks on Capitol Hill, predominantly young people, ages 16 to 22. These are students from Catholic institutions from across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Predominantly institutions run or by the Jesuit Order of Priests and Brothers, Pope Francis's religious order. And they were on Capitol Hill today preparing for legislative meetings with representatives and senators to talk about issues like climate change, U.S. immigration policy, and also many of the reasons that people are leaving the Central American region because of safety and security and coming to the United States.
Now, we know that the Pope is really big on the social justice theme. How significant is it to you, to organizations like yours, that he has put such a strong voice on this kind of call?
It's huge.
Yeah.
His voice has been so profound, so outward. It's not just his voice, but his actions. When Pope Francis talks about the plight of refugees, he goes to places like Lampedusa to do that. When he talks about the plight of the homeless, he invites homeless into the Vatican. So it's not just what he's saying, but how he's saying it, where he's saying it from, the actions he puts with his words. It's really important.
And we know that he's preparing for a trip to Africa. Hopefully he goes to Central Africa, where we know that there are some issues that may lead to a cancellation, but he'll go suddenly to Kenya and Uganda. What kind of message do you expect Pope Francis to deliver to those countries?
Well, I think he's going to deliver a message of peace, most predominantly. Certainly these are 3 countries that have encountered significant challenges with violence, with disagreement or struggle within the countries. And so I think he'll share a strong message of peace. I think he'll share a message similar to what he shared to the U.S. Congress of really inviting them into working for the common good, inviting government officials into working for the common good in those three countries. And I think he's going to talk about climate change, too, because when we think about the 1 billion people in the world that are most impacted by the effects of climate change, many of them are in the continent of Africa and in those three countries. So yes. I think, yeah.
Question I always want to ask is, do you your own assessment up to this point, do you get the sense that the major powers, the major political players are really embracing the message of the Pope?
I think they have to. And the reason why is because groups like those 1,200 young people on Capitol Hill today are coming and they're talking about why they want action on these issues using Pope Francis's name. And we see this, think of the engagement this country, and we'll see in Africa as well, of people interested in the visit, interested in what he's saying. And we saw a significant spike in interest in our work leading up to, during, and now after the visit, because I think people are seeing the connections. And again, it's because he's really not just saying things, but also putting himself in places when he says those things.
Yes. So, I mean, compared to previous popes, do you get the sense that he connects rather differently with people?
I think Pope Francis sees his relationship to not just Catholics, but all people of the world, as a little bit different than other popes. Other popes were, maybe, not all, but others have been a little more intellectual in their approach. He's taken a very pastoral, very hands-on approach, an approach of not just concepts and dogma, but contact as well, and that being with people, understanding their reality. I mean, I think this is, illustrative of a pope from a different part of the world, someone not from Europe, that has a different perspective on many of the realities, both realities of the church, but just the realities of life in different parts of the world. So yeah, it's different. Not to say that one is better than the other, but I think the approach is different, and I think it connects better with a lot of people.
Christopher, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Well, Christopher Kerr is the Executive Director, Ignatian Solidarity Network. Well, Malawi is facing its worst food shortages in years after flooding and drought during the past growing season. The UN World Food Programme is planning emergency food aid, but the crisis affecting nearly the entire nation is straining resources and could threaten the school feeding program. Lamek Masina reports from southern Malawi.
Tisungane Lawrence goes to school on an empty stomach. The maize harvest was poor this year.
Here we do not have enough to eat, and children go to school with no breakfast. There were floods followed by a dry spell, and that affected the crops.
The World Food Programme is planning food aid for 2.5 million Malawians, but the crisis is straining resources and could threaten its school feeding program. The UN agency introduced school feeding in Malawi 15 years ago. Nearly 1 million Malawi primary school students benefit from the program that includes morning porridge.
Once I take porridge here, I regain strength, and I am able to concentrate on what the teacher is teaching us in class.
Even in good years, the WFP says school feeding is a safety net for the families during the lean season. Now, with this crisis, it is essential.
We should be scaling up school feeding at this time. Unfortunately, the funding on that part is also quite constrained. So we have a very difficult situation.
She says school feeding keeps parents from pulling kids out of school when food and money are tight.
They not only learn, they get a meal, a nutritious meal. They also can be avoided from some of the negative coping strategies, which we know, unfortunately, take place through early marriages, pregnancy.
For now, Tisungane's grandmother raises pigs and has started brewing beer to make extra money while Tisungane and his 7 cousins go to school. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Chiradzulu, Malawi.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. A one-of-a-kind wedding ceremony, but not everyone is celebrating. We'll be right back.
fait par les concernés ou qu'elle soit cachée.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. If you're pursuing a glamorous Hollywood image, attention to details is essential. Now, according to doctors and beauty therapists, it's our hands and our necks that often reveal the truth about our age. And our surgical neck lifts are already popular here. And now plastic surgeons are taking care of our hands too. America's Food and Drug Administration has already approved the filler radies for use on the back of the hands. The injectable filler is already used at beauty clinics for all facial definitions and shape. It usually takes less than 20 minutes to inject both hands. Expect to shell out over $4,000 for a complete treatment. Well, next up, Just Games Interactive Entertainment is suing a rival studio, and Kris Jenner saying its idea for a Kim Kardashian mobile game was stolen. Blue Mobile released the hugely successful mobile game Kim Kardashian Hollywood in June 2014. The lawsuit filed contains several elements of Just Games' proposal were included in the game released to the public. Blue released a statement calling the lawsuit frivolous, saying it created the game independently and had never heard of the company suing it. Well, and finally, this love story is unbelievable. An anxious bride gets her hair and makeup done and is cinched into her wedding dress, where the guests cheer as the groom goes in for the kiss. It seems a perfect romance, but appearances can be deceiving. This love story is the marketing gist of a falsa boda, meaning mock wedding in English, an entertainment company in Argentina that organizes fake wedding parties with actors playing the main roles and guests who have paid $50 to attend. But not everyone loves the idea. For the church in highly Catholic Argentina, mock wedding ridicules a religious ritual, and that is what is trending today. Well, getting a coffee fix in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, has never been easier. Cafes are popping up all around the city. VOA's Caroline Turner has more.
Pete's Cafe was started 5 years ago by Peter Owiti. He learned the industry by working for one of Kenya's first coffee shop chains.
Our customers can now order like specialty coffee that is made or brewed for them specifically. You might say today I don't want to drink a Kenyan, I want to drink a Ugandan, I want to drink Tanzanian. Anything you want here you can get. I think that's a differentiation between us and what the other cafes are offering. And definitely it's a top dollar coffee that we offer.
More than the beverage, free Wi-Fi and an easy atmosphere have cultivated a new coffee culture that draws people who just want to hang out, as well as the business community.
You know, like for me, I have, yes, an office space. But sometimes because of, I kind of find my office space, you know, it's too confined, yeah?
It's like a conversation starter, because borrowing from African culture, anytime you're invited for a meal, anytime you're invited for a drink, it's more than just the meal or just the drink.
Kenya produces close to 1 million bags of coffee annually, but this is small compared with Uganda and Ethiopia. Its specialty coffee is highly sought after by roasters who blend it with coffees from other nations. At least 90% of Kenya's coffee is exported, At one time, it was Kenya's leading foreign exchange earner, but unpredictable weather and falling world prices have reduced production. Now the growing coffee culture brings new potential. Coffee lover Kui Wanjeri says Kenyans need to connect to the unique status that their coffee enjoys in other countries.
Slowly we're getting to that point where we're like, no, why is it so nice? Why do other people like it? Let's give it a shot. Let me see what it's like in my own house.
Coffee giant Starbucks currently sources coffee from 9 African countries. It's expected to make its entry into sub-Saharan Africa next year. Mukil Shah is the CEO of Eat Out Kenya, an online food and restaurant guide.
You've seen a change from, say, what we would call mom and pop shops, or family-run small restaurants, moving towards huge international franchises. And big brands coming in from the rest of the world.
Industry experts say the new coffee culture means there is room for competition.
They've been exposed to some of the best coffee shops around, so they have an awareness of these different offerings that they can get. So when they come home, and Kenya, we actually make coffee, we grow coffee. Expectations have grown, they've raised.
Kenya's biggest coffee market is still abroad, and analysts say the growing local consumption is unlikely to shift demand. But with more interest at home, coffee lovers hope finer quality will be more widely available. Carolyn Turner, VOA News.
Well, Sonny Young is off today, but here's a quick look at sports. Cameroonian soccer star Samuel Eto'o visited Ebola-free Sierra Leone last week, when it was part of a FIFA-sponsored campaign promoting good health in the region. The outdoor event was all about encouraging young people to live healthy lifestyles. His message: it's everyone's responsibility to educate themselves and learn how to live healthy and well. Well, it was an all-African final at the Under-17 World Cup in Vina del Mar, Chile, Sunday, and Nigeria's Golden Eaglets are world champions once again. They are only the second team ever to win back-to-back Under-17 championships. After a scoreless first half, the Nigerians took a 1-0 lead over Mali at the 56th minute of play. Minutes later, they added another score to seal the victory, 2-0. Nigeria's Victor Osimhen scored a record-breaking 10 goals in the tournament. Nigeria has won the FIFA Under-17 World Cup tournament 5 times since 1985, more championships than any other team. Congratulations, Nigeria. And that is sports for today. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Fishing is a favorite American activity. So what do you think this American English idiom might mean?
Fishing for compliments.
I got my hair cut last night, but I'm not sure how it looks. I feel like it's too short.
Please, you look great. But that's nothing new. Stop fishing for compliments, because you know your hair always looks fantastic.
A compliment is something good you say about a person or a thing. Fishing for compliments means you are looking for someone to say good things about you or something you have done. This phrase is used between friends, but sometimes people say it in a mean way about someone. And that's English in a Minute.